I am the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's estate. Unfortunately, I lost my mother when I was still an infant. A year later, my father remarried. My stepmother never mistreated me, but she never liked me either. Fortunately, my mother had arranged a good marriage for me before she died, so I was supposed to have a good life after I was married. But I never thought my fiancé would come to our house to change the engagement. He wanted to marry my stepmother's daughter. The room was silent for a few moments. My stepmother looked at me with a half-smile. "What are you standing there for? Go and slap him. When did the daughter of the Prime Minister's estate become someone he could just pick and choose? My name is Lucy. In the bustling, dreamlike capital, in the eyes of the noble families, I was just a symbol, a pitiful little thing who had lost her mother at a young age and had grown up alone." The more this was said, the more it seemed to be a brand on my forehead. My father, the Prime Minister, was busy with state affairs. Home, to him, was more like a resting place. He was always in a hurry, and all he left me was an occasional glance, a distant concern. My stepmother, from a prestigious family, was poised and proper. She managed the vast estate flawlessly. She was not cruel to me, but she was by no means close. There was an invisible veil between us, polite and cold. I was like a forgotten orchid in a corner of the back garden, left to grow on my own, battered by the wind and rain. In the capital, when the old established families were choosing a future mistress for their sons, their eyes would never fall on a daughter like me. They needed a young lady from a powerful maternal family who had been carefully raised from a young age and was skilled in social graces. And I was clearly not one of them. Fortunately, my late mother, with her last breath, had paved a seemingly bright path for me. A marriage she had arranged for me before she died. It was with the family of a childhood friend of hers, now a favored official of the emperor. My fiancé was the second son of the family, Jacob. Yesterday afternoon, my stepmother's head matron personally came to deliver a message. She said that today, my fiancé's family, whom I had never met, would be sending someone to deliver the mid-autumn festival gifts. She told me in a flat tone to be well prepared today, so as not to disgrace the Prime Minister's estate. Matron Lin was a person my mother had left for me. Her love for me was always hidden in the corners of her eyes. Before dawn, she had woken me up, helped me dress, and chose my clothes with meticulous care. I sat by the window and quietly finished a cup of cool, clear tea. I also finished half of a boring scripture. The shadow of the sun outside the window slowly moved from one corner of the window frame to the other. The people from his family were late. When I was led by a maid into the reception hall, the scene before me made me pause. Jacob, the name I had only heard in rumors, was now a living, breathing person. He was wearing a moon-white brocade robe, his figure tall and straight, his face handsome. At that moment, he was standing before my stepmother, performing the rites of a junior with perfect formality. I was a little surprised. I really hadn't expected that the person who had come to deliver a mere festival gift would be him himself. He heard the announcement and turned around. The moment he saw me, his handsome eyebrows raised slightly. His eyes held a hint of scrutiny, a hint of amusement, and a hint of a disdain I couldn't quite decipher. Although we had been engaged since we were children, we had really only met a few times over the years. I knew there were many rumors in the capital that I, Lucy, was half a year older than my fiancé. I also knew that he had always been bothered by this, and had even made a joke of it at a friend's banquet. We stood a few steps apart and, according to etiquette, greeted each other. His movements were casual, mine were precise. After the greeting, he didn't even wait for my stepmother to ask him to sit down. He just flicked his robes and sat down with a grand gesture. He cleared his throat, his gaze fixed on my stepmother, and said directly, "Aunt, I have come today for 2 reasons." His voice was clear and bright, but every word carried a youthful arrogance and a lack of awareness of the world. First, because the Mid-Autumn Festival is approaching, my parents have sent me to deliver some festival gifts. Second, after much thought, I feel that my sister, Lucy, and I are really not a good match. The moment he said that, the air in the entire hall seemed to freeze. His words were too direct, too hurtful, like a dagger dipped in ice, and he had just plunged it in. Before my stepmother and I could react, he continued as if no one else were there. However, this matter is not without a solution. A smile played on his lips as if he were talking about the most ordinary thing in the world. If you are willing to betroth my younger sister, I will of course be delighted, and will send the 3 letters and 6 rites, and marry her with a grand procession. My younger sister. Amelia, she was my stepmother's only daughter, my nominal younger sister. She was just of age this year. The room was instantly as cold as a cellar. Even breathing felt chilly. The servants standing by all looked at their own noses, wishing they could shrink into a ball to avoid being caught in the crossfire of their master's anger. Only he remained, with a look of nonchalance and even a hint of hope in his eyes as he looked at my stepmother, as if what he had proposed was some great good fortune. I couldn't help but clench my fingers in my sleeves, and my brow furrowed. He was doing this on purpose. He had come here today to publicly humiliate me, to humiliate the entire Prime Minister's estate. Sure enough, the next moment, my stepmother's cold gaze shot toward me like a sharp arrow. Her eyes held no pity, only a bone-chilling coldness of being offended. She suppressed the rage in her chest, and every word seemed to be squeezed from between her teeth. "What are you standing there for?" Her voice was not loud, but it made everyone in the room shiver. "Go and slap him." When did the daughter of the Prime Minister's estate become someone he could summon and dismiss at will, and even bargain over and choose from? The moment she finished speaking, everyone in the room, including him, instinctively looked up at her. The next moment, her head matron moved. She quickly walked to my side, took out a jet-black ruler from somewhere, and shoved it into my hand. "Young miss, use this. It is easy to handle, and it hurts more." Her voice was very low, but it reached my ears clearly. I gripped the cold, heavy ruler in my hand and looked up at the still stunned him. The moment our eyes met, I saw shock in his, and a flicker of a belated panic. He jumped up from his chair and took several steps back, putting some distance between us. "Aunt, please don't be angry. Please don't be angry." His arrogant air vanished, replaced by a fawning smile. I was just joking to liven things up. Yes, just a joke." With that, he bowed repeatedly to my stepmother, then turned and ran, stumbling out of the reception hall. His retreating figure was as pathetic as a stray dog. Seeing this, my stepmother shot up from her chair. She raised her hand, her slender fingers pointing at the pile of gifts he had brought. "Men," she roared, "take these people and these filthy things and throw them out of the estate." The maids and servants didn't dare to delay and quickly escorted his servants and the gifts out, when the reception hall was finally quiet again, and there was no trace of him or his family. My stepmother sat back down, picked up her teacup, and took a light sip. She didn't even look at me, just asked faintly, "What do you think about this?" What did I think? What could I think? He was young and reckless. His actions today were surely his own, without his parents' knowledge. Otherwise, with his father's composure and his mother's kindness, they would never have allowed him to do such a disgraceful thing. I lowered my head slightly, hiding all the emotions in my eyes, and chose my words carefully. "What do you think I should do, Mother?" She put down her teacup, stood up, and walked toward the hall. Her tall figure, as always, carried a hint of distant coldness. "I will tell your father everything. You should go back to your own courtyard for now." "Yes, Mother," I replied respectfully. As she was about to leave, she suddenly stopped. She didn't turn back, just glanced at me from the side. "Lucy, you should have your own ideas. Not just about this marriage, but about everything in your life from now on." I looked up at her profile. Her eyes were beautiful, a classic almond shape. When they moved, they always carried a certain authority. When I was little, like all children who craved a mother's love, I had greedily sought her embrace, stumbling up to her and timidly calling her Mommy. She had once bent down and picked me up, but her embrace was not warm. She had just held me, and over again, told me in a calm, almost cruel voice, "I am not your mother." Your mother is gone. From now on, in public and in private, just call me mother. Later, when I was old enough to understand, I finally understood the deep meaning of those two sentences. She was the mistress of the estate, my stepmother, but she would never be my mommy. She seemed not to be waiting for a reply. She left me with a resolute back and quickly left the reception hall. Matron Lin came up to me, her eyes full of pity. She looked at me carefully and finally sighed. My lady, please don't take today's events to heart. The second young master is still young. He is bound to be a little impulsive. I raised my hand and gently cut her off. I know, matron. My voice was calm, with no ripples. I know that what I am really marrying is his family's status, not him. His father and mother are reasonable people. They will be very good to me. Although his actions were reckless, it was not a major mistake. At most, it was just a youthful indiscretion, right? Matron, you were trying to tell me this, right? She looked at me with a bitter smile and said no more. I had lost my mother at a young age. It was she and another old servant of my mother's who had raised me. How could I not know what they were thinking? They were afraid I would be sad, that I would be heartbroken, that I would do something rash. But they didn't know that the words my stepmother had said before she left were like a haunting spell, repeating in my mind. You should have your own ideas. Have my own ideas. In the evening, my father, in a rare occurrence, came to my chambers. He was still in his court robes, which still carried the solemnity of the court and the coolness of the evening wind. I knew that he had come directly to me after returning from the palace. He motioned for me to sit down, not to stand on ceremony. I have already learned from your mother what that bastard did at the estate today. His voice was tired and filled with a suppressed anger. I have already written a letter and had it sent to his estate, he replied quickly. He said he would personally break his legs, and that he and his wife had no prior knowledge of today's events. Tomorrow morning, your aunt will come to our house. She wants to apologize to you in person for his reckless words, and also to see you and comfort you. My father kept talking, saying a lot. He suddenly realized that I had been looking down the whole time, not at him, and had not said a single word. Is something on your mind that you want to tell your father? Hearing this, I slowly looked up, straightened my stiff back, and asked softly, Father, do I have to marry him? My father seemed not to have expected me to ask such a question. This is your mother. This is what your mother, on her deathbed, made me promise to do for her. Your aunt, at that time, also took your mother's hand and swore to the heavens that she would treat you like her own daughter and let you live a life without worries. Your mother, I know, father. I cut him off. Marriage to him was the last thing my mother had done for me in this world. I knew that my father could not, and would not, go against her final wish, and I, it seemed, could not betray her deep love for me. The next day, at dawn, my aunt arrived with many precious gifts. My stepmother tactfully found an excuse to leave, leaving me and her alone. I had thought that she would say many words of apology and comfort, but I never thought that the first thing she would say, holding my hand, would be, My dear, that dog. Let's not have him. He is not worthy of you. If you don't like him, we can find another. Don't worry. Your aunt will make the decision for you. Your older cousin will be back from his travels in the south next year. What do you think of him? My older cousin Jacob, his older brother. She seemed to think that this was a brilliant idea and looked at me with anticipation, but I was so shocked by her words that I was speechless. Aunt, this is impossible. Hey, why is it impossible? She patted the back of my hand and said eagerly, My dear, your older cousin has always been the fondest of you. He even held you when you were a baby. Don't worry, if you marry him, he will be good to you. He will never be like that bastard and make you angry. Your mother entrusted you to me. I must be responsible for you and make sure you have a good life. I knew that she was genuinely thinking of me. I took her warm hand and sincerely thanked her. Aunt, I understand your intentions. I tried to make my voice sound calm and sincere. I was not hurt or sad by his words yesterday. I know he was just being a boy, and he said some foolish things in a moment of impulse. please don't punish him too harshly. As for what you just said, please don't mention it in front of my older cousin. He has always seen me as a younger sister to be taken care of, and I have always seen him as a respected older brother. There is no romantic love between us." She seemed to disagree with what I had said. She opened her mouth, as if to say more. I quickly changed the subject before she could speak. "Aunt, you see, the Mid-Autumn Festival is almost here. A few days ago, I made a pair of shoes for you and my uncle. Please take a look and see if you like them, if they fit." Matron Lin, with a knowing look, had a young maid present the gift I had prepared. It was a pair of soft-soled shoes made of fine silk, with auspicious cloud patterns embroidered in gold thread. She held them in her hands, turning them over and over, her eyes filled with love. "So beautiful, so beautiful. Your hands are as skilled as your mother's." She praised them lovingly. "I remember, when I got married, your mother, afraid I would be looked down on by my in-laws, stayed up for several nights and personally embroidered a whole set of dragon and phoenix quilts for me. I don't know how many nights she stayed up to embroider such a complex pattern, stitch by stitch." At this, her voice choked a little, and her eyes turned red. She immediately realized her gaffe and quickly changed the subject, chatting with me about other things. After a lot of effort, I finally saw her off. I had the maid send the 2 pairs of shoes I had prepared for my father and stepmother. That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep. The events of the day replayed in my mind, like a revolving lantern. As I tossed and turned, I suddenly sat up. I put on a robe and, alone, stumbling in the dark, I went to the remote ancestral hall where my mother's memorial tablet was kept. I knelt silently before her cold tablet, 1,000 words in my heart, but I didn't know where to begin. After a long time, I finally spoke to the cold piece of wood. "Mother, do you really think that if I marry into their family, I will be happy? I am 17 this year, and he, in another 6 months, will be 17. According to the rules, I have to wait until he is 18 and has had his coming-of-age ceremony before I can marry him. I know that he doesn't want to marry me at all." Besides this incident of changing the engagement, we had also met at a spring outing outside the city. That day, he was riding with a group of friends, and they galloped past. He had deliberately ridden up to my carriage and said to me in a mocking tone, "Sister, when you are out for a spring outing, you should be riding a horse to have fun. What is the point of being cooped up in a carriage?" With that, he had even reached out and tried to pull me out of the carriage. I was so scared and angry that I had snapped at him for being rude and shameless. He, being scolded, instead of being embarrassed, had gotten angry and had jumped onto my carriage. He had come close to me, gritted his teeth, and said, "I am shameless. So what? In the end, aren't you going to obediently marry me?" Thinking of this, I suddenly felt a strong, unprecedented sense of disgust. I don't want to marry him at all. I don't like such a frivolous, childish, and arrogant person. Just as he had never liked a dull, proper, and older person like me. Before my mother's tablet, the 2 incense sticks burned, the green smoke curling up and then dissipating into thin air. I got up from the cold cushion and went back to my courtyard. The next morning, when I woke up, I told Matron Lin, "Matron, prepare the carriage. I am going to the Grand Court of Revision to find my father." A flicker of surprise crossed her face, but she said nothing and just went to prepare. Although the Grand Court of Revision was in the city, it was a considerable distance from our estate. When I arrived at the imposing entrance, the guards in armor stopped me, and as a matter of routine, asked for my identity and purpose. He told me to wait a moment while he went to announce me, so I stood by the huge stone lion, quietly waiting for my father to send someone to get me. Suddenly, from the distant street, came the rapid and dense sound of horse hooves. I instinctively looked up. I saw a group of riders in black, with long swords at their waists, heading toward the Grand Court of Revision, their presence menacing. The leader was riding a magnificent pure black horse, like a moving black cloud. Seeing this, Matron Lin quickly pulled me back. I also lowered my head, preparing to let this intimidating group pass. The sound of the hooves grew closer, with a heart-pounding pressure. Suddenly, I heard someone rein in their horse sharply. The horse let out a loud neigh and stopped in front of me. I looked up slightly, and what came into view was a jet-black, glossy horse. It was tilting its large head and looking at me with curious obsidian-like eyes. I was so startled by this sudden close contact that I instinctively took a big step back. I was just about to look up and see who the rider was when a low, clear voice, like the clash of jade, interrupted me. Whined, "Do not be rude to the young lady." The man swung his leg over and dismounted with a fluid motion. He was tall, dressed in a dark flying fish robe, which made his face look cold and his demeanor extraordinary. When he saw me, a flicker of surprise also crossed his eyes. "Miss, what are you doing here?" I recognized him too. The commander of the Imperial Guard, the Emperor's most trusted claw, a man named Arthur. "Greetings, Commander." I curtsied. He smiled at me apologetically, and the smile softened some of the coldness about him. "Miss, were you frightened by my horse just now? I sincerely apologize on its behalf." I curled my lips and glanced at the horse, who was still looking at me with curiosity, and smiled. "You are too kind, Commander. It was just that I am a little timid." Just as he was about to say more, my father hurried out of the yamen. He nodded slightly to me, then turned and led his men into the yamen. "Why did you come here to find your father? Is something wrong?" My father walked up to me, his tone tinged with worry. I stood before my father, my hands clutching my silk handkerchief, a thin sheen of sweat on my palms. "Father, I have something to tell you." My father nodded and motioned for me to continue. "All right, tell me. I am listening." I took a deep breath as if I had to muster all my strength, and finally, "Father, I don't want to marry him anymore." My father's expression froze for a moment. He asked tentatively, "But did that boy do something to upset you again?" I slowly shook my head, looked up, and for the first time, I asked my father directly. "Father, if you search your heart, do you really think that I will be happy if I marry into their family?" My father seemed not to understand what I meant. So I continued. "Although his father is only a civil official now, who in the court doesn't know that he is the emperor's choice for the next left chancellor. When my older cousin returns from his travels next year, he will also enter the court. With his talent, his future is limitless. As his father's legitimate second son, even if he is not as capable, his future will not be too bad. Father, although our family is a prime minister's family, I lost my mother at a young age and have no maternal family to support me. To marry into their family is, strictly speaking, to marry up. The reason my aunt is so kind and protective of me is 1, because of her deep friendship with my mother, and 2, because she pities my loneliness. But father, he does not like me. You and I both know this. If I really do marry him, there will be countless conflicts between us in the future. At that time, even if my aunt still remembers her friendship with my mother, how long will that friendship last? 10 years? 20 years? He is her biological son." I looked up at my father, my gaze burning. But he instinctively turned his head away and avoided my eyes. He was still repeating the words I had heard countless times. "But my dear, your marriage was arranged by your mother. Her love for you. I cannot betray it." "Father," I said sharply, interrupting him. My father frowned and finally turned to look at me. I straightened my back and met his gaze without fear. "Father, have you noticed? Whether it is you or my aunt, whenever you talk about my marriage, you always talk about my mother. You all say you cannot betray my mother's wishes. So, you naturally assume that I should not, and cannot, betray my mother's kindness. But, father, my mother is dead. She has been dead for 16 whole years." My voice trembled. 16 years ago, when she made this choice on her deathbed, she did not know that 16 years later, he would do such a despicable thing as to come to our house and ask to change the engagement. The reason my mother went to such lengths to arrange this marriage with their family before she died was because she was worried about me. She was afraid that after she was gone in this vast estate there would be no one to truly love me. She was afraid that you would, for the sake of your political career, casually marry me off to some unknown family, and that I would suffer. So whenever you see me, you think of my mother, and you have to, in front of me, repeatedly mention my mother's love for me. But, Father, if you search your heart, have you almost forgotten what my mother looked like? And how many good days can I have in their family, relying on the little bit of friendship between my mother and my aunt? Hearing my words, my father's pupils constricted. He instinctively took a step back and looked at me with a very complex expression. He murmured, Did your mother know that you were coming to find me today to do this? I shook my head, a bitter smile on my lips. Father, I am your daughter, not my mother's daughter. My father seemed not to have expected me to say such a thing. He stammered, but in the end, he couldn't say a word. Seeing this, I stated my final intention directly. Father, go to their family and break off this engagement. And I no longer want to live a life where I am constantly reminded that I am a pitiful person who lost her mother at a young age. After saying that, I thought for a moment and decided to twist the knife in his heart a little more. Tomorrow is the anniversary of my mother's death. I am going to the temple outside the city to light a long-lasting lamp for her and to chant scriptures for her. Since I am already out of the city today, and the journey is convenient, I will not be returning to the estate. I will go directly to the temple from here. I knew that my father had long forgotten the date of my mother's death. Actually, it didn't matter. I had never expected him to remember. After all, he had never once clearly remembered my own birthday. After a long time, my father finally found his voice, and he said All right, I know. Do you need me to send a few people to escort you to the temple? No need, father. I can go myself. Before we parted, I reminded my father once more. Father, when you go back, think about what I said. You remember, go to their family and break off the engagement. My father did not nod or shake his head this time. He just looked at me with a very complex expression I had never seen before, and watched me get into the carriage and slowly drive away. In the carriage, Matron Lin's face was filled with disapproval and worry. I knew what she wanted to say, but I didn't try to defend myself. I just said half-jokingly, Matron, if it is really that bad, you can just have a dream like my father and see my mother. You can ask her in person what she thinks. My words made her laugh, and the worry in her eyes dissipated a little. She came over with a smile and pulled my cloak tighter around me. I will do as you say, my lady. Whatever you say, I will do. Even if you don't want to get married in the future, the dowry and property your mother left, you will be enough for you to live a rich and peaceful life. Hearing this, my nose started to sting for no reason. I thought of my other matron, who was currently at my mother's old home, taking care of things for me. Matron, do you think that my uncle and the other matron will also think that I am betraying my mother's kindness by doing this? She reached out with her calloused hands and gently pulled me into her arms. My lady, you must remember that your mother's greatest wish has always been for you to be well and happy. As long as you are happy, that is enough. The carriage had just reached the official road leading to the temple when a fast horse galloped up from behind and brazenly blocked our way. Matron Lin lifted a corner of the curtain, and after a glance, told me with a changed expression, My lady, it is the second young master. Before I could speak, his angry voice exploded outside the carriage. He said, Lucy, get out here, you despicable, shameless person who only knows how to tattle behind people's backs. What did you say to my mother to make her hit and scold me today? Do you want to marry me that badly, huh? Anyone who didn't know better would think that you, Lucy, are so desperate to get married that you have to cling to me. How ridiculous! Every word he said was filled with a sharp, sarcastic tone, like a series of small needles piercing my eyes until they hurt. Jacob, shut up, I snapped. What, you don't like it when I say a few words about you? Suddenly, I felt the carriage sink as someone jumped onto the shaft. The next second, he suddenly reached out and ripped open my carriage curtain. What are you looking at? What are you doing? He saw my angry eyes and sneered. What? I can't even look. Aren't you so desperate to marry me? I've thought about it. I don't mind. I am willing to marry you. When I marry you, I'll see how I can pamper you and teach you a lesson for your insolence. My face darkened, and I looked at his handsome face, which was now twisted with anger. "Jacob, I am warning you one last time. Please show me some respect." "Respect," he said, as if he had heard the biggest joke in the world. "Didn't I just go to your house and say a few truths in front of your stepmother? And you had your father send a letter to my father to put pressure on him? And you had your mother come to our house to apologize and stand up for you? Lucy, you have such a big face. Isn't it just because you have a mother who has long been dead?" "Shut up!" I shot up from the soft cushions of the carriage and knelt before him. In a moment of surprise, I raised my hand and, with all my strength, slapped him hard across the face. Slap, a crisp, loud slap echoed on the quiet official road. His face was turned to the side, and he was stunned for a long time. Then, he slowly turned his head back and ran his tongue over the swollen side of his face. His face darkened, and a frightening anger erupted in his eyes. He reached out and grabbed my waist. "You dare to hit me." I clenched my fingers, my nails digging into my palms, and met his gaze without fear. "If you don't let go of me right now, I don't mind slapping you again." He suddenly let out a sinister laugh and his hands on my waist tightened. With a swift turn, he forcibly pulled me out of the carriage. Before I could even find my footing, he used all his strength and pushed me to the cold, hard ground. Matron Lin was so scared by this sudden turn of events that she tried to get out of the carriage to help me. But in her haste, she slipped and fell heavily from the carriage. Before I could get up, a tall figure quickly walked up to me, bent down, and with a very gentle force, helped me up. It was him. Why was he here? He stood steadily by my side, his tall figure shielding me from him. He bent down and asked, "Miss, are you hurt anywhere?" His voice was still low and pleasant, and at this moment, it had a reassuring power. I shook my head. My maid also came up and supported me. He did not even look at him. The back of my hand, when I had fallen, had been scraped by the gravel on the ground, and now it was oozing red blood. "Miss, your right hand is injured." His brow furrowed slightly. "Forgive me." With that, he took out a clean handkerchief from his pocket and was about to come and treat my wound. But at that moment, he suddenly rushed forward, grabbed my arm, and roughly pulled me away from him. He glared at him with a hostile and unfriendly gaze. "Commander, our husband and wife matters are not for an outsider like you to interfere in." He deliberately emphasized the word husband and wife. "Sister is my fiancé. Isn't it a little inappropriate for you to be holding her hand in front of me?" Hearing this, a barely perceptible smile touched his lips, and a faint sarcasm flashed in his eyes. He still ignored his shouting and looked at me again. I could no longer bear his entanglement and forcefully shook off his hand. I snapped, "Jacob, you have some nerve to say that. If it weren't for you going crazy just now and pushing me out of the carriage, I wouldn't have been injured." He still did not look at him but asked me gently, "Miss, do you want to leave this place now?" I nodded vigorously. Hearing this, he personally came forward and carefully helped me into the carriage. Then, he turned and gave a cold order to the guards in flying fish robes beside him. "See the second young master back to his estate. Also report everything that happened here today to the Prime Minister, word for word." At this point, he finally turned his cold gaze to the pale him. "Second young master, I was entrusted by the Prime Minister to escort Miss to the temple. Now that she is here, I will take my leave." With that, he ignored his angry shouts from behind, mounted his horse, and quickly led me away from this place of trouble. After getting into the carriage, Matron Lin immediately and carefully lifted my skirt. When he had pulled me from the carriage, my calf had hit the shaft hard. Now, when I lifted my pant leg, the skin was swollen, and a large, dark purple bruise had formed. A shocking sight. I stopped her from applying medicine immediately. "Matron, it is not urgent. We can do it at the temple." He was a man of his word and insisted on personally escorting me to the temple gate. I stood at the entrance and sincerely thanked and apologized to him. I thanked him for his help today and apologized for his rudeness. He just smiled and said it was nothing. Then he took out 2 exquisite white jade porcelain bottles from his pocket and handed them to me. One is a high-quality wound medicine, which can stop bleeding and promote healing. The other is a bruise-reducing ointment, which is very effective. You can try it, miss. Thank you for your kindness, Commander, but I have medicine in my luggage. I politely declined. He did not insist and instead said, "In that case, miss, let's go in together." Hearing this, I looked at him in surprise. "Are you also here to offer incense at the temple, Commander?" "No." He shook his head, a mysterious smile on his lips. "I am here on imperial orders to stay for a couple of days, to cultivate my mind and character. Please, miss." After I had settled in at the temple, treated my wounds, and personally lit a long-lasting lamp for my mother at the main hall, I finally had time to think about everything that had happened today. He, to put it nicely, was a little boyish and naive. To put it bluntly, he was a spoiled, ignorant fool. In the past, I had been too lazy to argue with him because he was younger than me. But today, he had gone too far. I said to my headmaid, "Go and have your brother immediately return to the capital and find the steward. Have him bring a few of the best men. Have them come to the temple to find me tonight." She was my most capable headmaid. Her brother had also been serving me for a long time. They were both old servants my mother had left for me, loyal and devoted. And the steward was our family's head steward, my father's most trusted confidant. She acknowledged and quietly left to make the arrangements. I had originally planned to copy a few scriptures before the Buddha to pray for my mother. But some things had come to mind, so I got up and decided to find him, who was also staying here. I and Matron Lin walked slowly to the entrance of the small, quiet courtyard where he was staying. He was practicing his sword in the courtyard. The gate of the courtyard was open a crack. His guard had a sharp eye and saw me at the door. He quickly came to greet me. "Miss, what are you doing here?" The guard's attitude was very respectful. "Please have a seat on the stone bench in the courtyard. Our master," he suddenly had the urge to practice his sword. "So, I am afraid I'll have to ask you to wait a little while." I nodded, understanding. I sat on the stone bench in the courtyard, and from a short distance, quietly watched him practice, one stroke after another. His sword technique was powerful and full of a killing intent, a stark contrast to his usual cold and refined demeanor. I watched, and my mind started to wander, so much so that I didn't even notice that he had finished practicing, sheathed his sword, and had come to sit beside me. It wasn't until he spoke that I, as if waking from a dream, realized he had finished. "Miss, a commander, you are done." His face seemed to freeze for a moment. He nodded, then asked, "Did you come to find me for something important, miss?" I gently pushed the thank you gift I had her prepare toward him. "Thank you for your help today, Commander. This is a small token of my appreciation. I hope you will not despise it." He looked at the brocade box that had been pushed in front of him and raised an eyebrow in surprise. "This is for me." "Yes. You are too kind, miss." I pursed my lips and, after a moment's hesitation, finally asked the question I really wanted to ask. "Commander, did you really tell my father everything that he did on the official road today?" He clearly hadn't expected me to ask such a question. He didn't answer directly but threw the question back at me. "Then, miss," I heard him ask in a somewhat cool tone. "Why," I thought for a moment and explained, "this is between me and him. I think I can handle it myself. So if you haven't told my father yet, could you please not tell him?" His long, well-defined fingers gently stroked the teacup on the stone table. After a long time, he finally spoke. "Since you don't want the Prime Minister to know, then I will not say anything." I quickly stood up and sincerely thanked him, and then took my leave. After returning to my meditation room, she quietly told me that her brother had already returned to the capital and that the men I had requested would arrive before midnight. I thought for a moment and said to her in a low voice, "When your brother comes back tonight, tell him to leave 2 of the cleverest men to quietly watch this commander and see what he is up to at this temple. The rest, have him take them to the capital and capture that fool. Don't kill him, just beat him until he is in pain. After you've beaten him, Just throw him at the back gate of his family's estate. After hearing my instructions, her face showed no change. She acknowledged calmly and went to make the arrangements. Matron Lin on the side gave me a surprised look but said nothing. She just silently picked up the ointment and continued to gently rub the hideous bruise on my calf. That night, I lay in bed, tossing and turning, my mind replaying the 2 encounters with him today. It was too much of a coincidence. So much of a coincidence that it was as if someone had written a script beforehand. Although we had met a few times, we were not familiar with each other. The only connection between us was that he was currently serving in the Grand Court of Revision, which was under my father's jurisdiction. And today, he had told him that my father had asked him to escort me to the temple. That was absolutely impossible. Although his official rank was not as high as my father's, he had another, more prominent identity: the commander of the Imperial Guard, a close confidant of the Emperor. My father would have to have been kicked in the head by a donkey to trouble such a powerful figure to escort his unfavored daughter. And today, when I had gone to thank him, he had been practicing his sword in the courtyard at that particular time. Not early, not late, but at that exact time. A military man, why would he suddenly have the urge to practice his sword in the afternoon? But this was also not absolute proof. It was possible that he just liked to practice his sword at this strange time. As I was thinking, I fell into a deep sleep in the midst of my chaotic thoughts. In the middle of the night, as I was sleeping soundly, she and Matron Lin suddenly rushed in and shook me awake. My lady, wake up! The mountain next to the temple is on fire. The abbot said that the fire is very big and might spread here. He told us to evacuate immediately. I shot up from the bed, my mind still a little groggy. What about my mother's memorial tablet? My mother's memorial tablet, for as long as I can remember, had always been enshrined in the main hall of this temple. This was the main reason I had come to stay here for a few days every year. She nodded vigorously, reassuring me. Don't worry, my lady. The moment I heard about the fire, I had my brother personally go and retrieve the madam's tablet. It is now in the arms of the young maid, being held tightly. By the time I was dressed and had rushed out of the courtyard, I saw the steward, who had been waiting in the dark. As I and my people were walking over, he immediately came forward and bowed respectfully. I was a little surprised to see him. Steward, why are you here? He smiled and explained. Young miss, you wanted someone to teach the second young master a lesson. I didn't trust the young men under me with such a matter, fearing they would be too rough, so I did it myself. And I was thinking of coming to the temple to see you, miss. I never thought I would run into such a thing. Don't worry, young miss. I have already prepared the carriage. Although it is late, I have already sent someone to the villa to make arrangements. Our family's villa at the foot of the mountain is not far from here. We will be there in no time. I nodded, my heart settling a little. All right, let's go. What about him? How is he? As you instructed, miss. He was taken to the back gate of his family's estate. Did you hit him hard? Hard enough to keep him in bed for 10 days or half a month, but not hard enough to make his mother cry. I nodded with satisfaction. The steward's work was always so thorough and reassuring. I said a hasty farewell to the abbot of the temple, and was about to head to my family's villa with my people when I ran into him, who was also standing outside the temple preparing to leave. Seeing me, he took the initiative to come over and ask, I wonder where you are going next, miss? My family has a villa nearby, at the foot of the mountain. I am planning to stay there for the night. Hearing this, he immediately went along with my words. I wonder if it would be convenient for me to also impose on you for a night's stay. His eyes looked very sincere, and his tone was also very sincere. And since he had done me a big favor today, I really couldn't find any reason to refuse him. It wasn't until we had reached the already prepared carriage that he suddenly said he wanted to ride with me. The polite smile on my lips froze for a moment. Commander, this is probably not proper, but he, unlike his gentle and polite demeanor during the day, was suddenly a little forceful. I was injured while fighting the bandits today. I really shouldn't be riding a horse. He paused and looked at me deeply. Besides, if we ride in the same carriage, I can clear up some of your confusion." I instantly understood. He had discovered the two people I had sent to spy on him. I had Matron Lin open the curtain and invited him into the carriage. Although it was just the two of us in the carriage, with so many servants following outside, and they could all see inside, it wasn't too out of line. A faint smile was on his lips. He was waiting for me to speak first. I sighed lightly in my heart. I knew I had met a true master this time. To have rashly sent people to investigate you, Commander, was my fault. Please forgive me. It is fine. His attitude made it really hard for me to figure out what he wanted. But miss, if you have anything you want to ask me, you can just ask me directly. I will surely tell you everything I know. I looked up and met his dark, unfathomable eyes. Commander, why were you at the temple today? He seemed to have expected me to ask this question. He answered without a moment's hesitation. Because the fire on the mountain tonight, I was the one who set it. I instinctively frowned. Seeing this, he let out a light laugh. Don't look at me so nervously, miss. I was just following the Emperor's orders to clear out a group of bandits who have been entrenched here for many years. It was just that at the end, my men were a little careless and accidentally knocked over a candle in the stronghold, which unfortunately started this wildfire. He changed the subject and added, "But don't worry, miss. I have already sent people to put out the fire. No ordinary people have been harmed." This was the first time I had seen him in such a clear and profound way. He was very dangerous. This was a decisive, meticulous, and ruthless man. This was the capital, under the Emperor's nose. The temple I had come to was the prosperous royal temple. It was only 20 miles from the bustling inner city. It was even only about 10 miles from the Grand Court of Revision where my father was. In a place like this, how could there be bandits who had been entrenched for many years? Perhaps my expression was too serious and suspicious. He also gradually wiped the casual smile from his lips. He looked at me and suddenly reminded me, "Miss, sometimes, learning to play dumb is a very smart choice." I gave him a light, bland smile and said no more. It was almost dawn when we arrived at the villa. Before getting out of the car, he suddenly said to me, "The two men you sent to me, miss, are very skilled. I have already had them safely sent back to the estate. You don't have to worry." With that, he turned and went straight to the guest room that had been arranged for him. She came up to me and asked in a low voice, "My lady, did the commander discover our people?" "Yes." Then why did he follow us to our villa? Perhaps he just wanted a place to stay." "Don't worry about him for now. Go and rest. You've been up all night." The next day, when I woke up in my bedroom at the villa, I was surprised to find that he was still there. He was taking a leisurely walk in the front courtyard with his guard. When he saw me standing on the veranda, he very naturally walked over, and even took the initiative to invite me to have breakfast with him. "Miss, have you had breakfast? Why don't we eat together?" I really didn't understand what this high-ranking commander wanted from me. "Commander, this seems not very proper." "What is not proper? You don't have to be so formal, miss." This awkward breakfast, in the end, I had to force myself to eat with him. Just as we finished eating, and before we could leave the table, the steward came in from outside with a grave expression. "Young miss, the second young master has found his way to the villa." "Jacob, what is he doing here?" The steward silently stood up and moved aside. In my line of sight, a man with a horsewhip in his hand was walking toward me with an angry face. The moment he saw me, he demanded, "Lucy, was it you? Was it you who sent people to beat me?" Well, at least his brain worked at a time like this. So he had come to settle the score. I sneered and was about to speak when I heard him suddenly raise his voice in disbelief. "Lucy, why are you having breakfast with him?" I was really tired, exhausted. I didn't even want to say another word to him. Just then, he who had been silent suddenly reached out, took my empty bowl and filled it with porridge. He even gave me a gentle smile. I could only feel that he was doing this on purpose, because we had both finished eating and were about to leave the table. At this time, he had to make such an intimate gesture to serve me food. His intention was all too clear. He was deliberately trying to provoke him. Sure enough, The next moment, he, like a lit firecracker, exploded. Lucy, you shameless, unfaithful woman. Have you forgotten that you are my fiancé? Why are you eating alone with another man? And he is even serving you food. His words made me feel sick and angry. Before I could retaliate, he spoke slowly. Second young master, you are still a boy, so impulsive. I am having breakfast with her because I want to. His light words made the name, her sound particularly harsh. Besides, you accuse her of being unfaithful. That is a terrible slander. He paused and looked at him with a pitying expression, then continued unhurriedly. And your information is very outdated. Don't you know that at this very moment, the Prime Minister should be at your estate, successfully breaking off your engagement? The person whose face changed along with him was me. He and I, for a rare moment, were on the same page. He was surprised that my father had really gone to break off the engagement, and I was shocked that he knew that my father had broken off the engagement for me before I did. He clearly also realized this. He looked at me with a disbelieving gaze. He demanded, Lucy, you actually dared to do this. Aren't you afraid my mother will be heartbroken? Aren't you afraid my family will resent your family for this? Hearing this, I really wanted to go and slap him. But in the end, I held back. If my aunt knew that you had once said in front of me that I was deliberately clinging to you, that I wanted to marry you, and that I was even using my long-dead mother to pester you, I think you don't need me to tell you what the consequences will be. He clearly remembered the despicable things he had said to me. A flicker of guilt and panic crossed his face. But then, as if he had just realized something, he continued to ask me defiantly, Then why did you have your father break off the engagement? You can do this to me. His unreasonable entanglement really made my patience run out at this moment. Go and invite the second young master out. Before he could shout again, I told him coldly, As for why I broke off the engagement, you should go home and ask your own parents. See him out. After sending that big trouble away, I felt the whole world instantly quiet down. At that moment, I finally understood why I was so unhappy every time I saw him. Because he was stunned for a moment, then slowly stood up, bowed to me, and left. Not long after he left, she came in to report that my stepmother's head matron had come from the estate. I had thought that my stepmother had heard about the fire on the mountain next to the temple, and was worried, so she had sent someone to see me. But I never thought that she would bring news related to him. You mean that there was more to the story of him coming to ask to change the engagement? She nodded and said in detail, Yes, young miss. The day before he came to deliver the Mid-Autumn Festival gifts, he and the young prince of the Rui estate had gone to a poetry gathering in the south of the city. At that gathering, he was teased by his friends about his engagement to you. In a moment of indiscretion, he said many things about not wanting to marry into the Shen family. At that time, someone at the gathering fanned the flames, saying that, since the eldest daughter of the Shen family was not suitable, there was still a beautiful younger daughter. Latter, the young prince of the Rui estate also, intentionally or unintentionally egged him on a few times. So, the next day, he impulsively came to the house and did such a ridiculous thing as to ask to change the engagement. After she had said all this, she relayed my stepmother's original words to me. The madam said that you should always remember that when a person suddenly appears in your life without any warning, they must have a motive. The madam also said that since it is the anniversary of your late mother's death, you must be feeling sad. Why don't you stay at this villa for a few days, and avoid the troublesome people and things at the estate? After respectfully seeing her off, I immediately had the steward go and investigate something for me. Before dinner, he returned. Miss, you were right. The day you went to the Grand Court of Revision to find your father, that commander's original itinerary was to go to the army camp in the west of the city. And that mountain is the one that was on fire last night. But halfway there, for some reason, the commander's carriage suddenly changed course and went to the Grand Court of Revision, where he happened to have a few words with you. Not long after you left, the commander also immediately set off and continued toward the mountain, and even more coincidentally on the way, the commander happened to run into the second young master pestering you on the official road. The rest, you already know. Also, I found out that the young prince of the Rui estate and this commander are very close. They are well known as sworn brothers in the capital. Miss, is there anything else you need me to do? No. Thank you for your hard work, steward. After she had seen him off, she came back and found me still staring blankly at a book. She came up to me, reached out, and gently massaged my stiff shoulders, her voice soft and comforting. My lady, even if this commander really has some motive, we don't have to be afraid. The other matron has already sent a letter back, saying that she can be back in the capital in 2 days with the things. Hearing that she would be back in 2 days, my tense mood finally lifted with a rare joy. Really? Absolutely, my lady. The other matron also sent you a separate letter. I just got it. I eagerly opened the letter, which was covered in the dust of a long journey. She had written very little. Besides asking about my health, there was only a short and powerful sentence at the end of the letter. It is done. I clutched the letter to my chest, a genuine joy slowly spreading from the bottom of my heart. The day she returned, she not only brought back what I wanted, but also a handwritten letter from my uncle in the south. My father looked at the contents of the letter with a look of disbelief. Your uncle said in the letter that he wants you to go and stay with him for a while? Yes, father? Then how long will you be staying? My dear, you are 17 this year, and now that you have just broken off your engagement with their family, it is time for you to find another good match. I lowered my head slightly and replied to my father in a very submissive tone. My uncle, he hasn't seen me in many, many years, since he has taken the initiative to ask to see me. I really want to go, father. As for my marriage, if it really comes to that, you can just decide for me. My father seemed not to have expected me to say such a thing. Before he could ask any more questions, I continued. If you find a suitable young master in the future, you can just ask my mother. My mother, in her spirit in heaven, if she is also willing, she will surely send you a dream to tell you. You child. Finally, my father let out a long sigh and agreed. Before I left, my never-close sister and brother, for the first time, showed a hint of sadness and reluctance. My sister even came up and hugged me, her eyes red. Elder sister, take care on your journey to the south. My brother and I will be waiting for you to come back. I hugged her gently and replied, okay. The carriage slowly left the tall and majestic city gates of the capital, and I finally relaxed. The other matron looked at my relieved expression with a mixture of amusement and pity and patted my leg. My dear, your golden cicada sheds its skins. This time was really beautifully done. It was flawless, perfect. I smiled and affectionately hugged her arm. It was not my work. You were the one who did the most and the hardest. When I and my people arrived at the first post station after leaving the capital, preparing to rest, I never thought that I would see him again here. He seemed to have been here for a long time waiting for me. Seeing me and my people come in, his face showed no trace of surprise. Miss, we meet again. What a coincidence. I really didn't want to talk to him. Not at all. A coincidence. He didn't seem to mind my undisguised coldness, and even said with a hint of a smile, as if seeking praise, Miss, shouldn't you be thanking me? For what? Of course, for personally delivering to you the reason you needed to break off the engagement. So, it was really all his doing. I stared at him, who was looking at me with a burning gaze and a frank smile, and asked, word for word, what do you want? He did not retreat but took a step toward me, lowered his voice, and said in a volume that only the two of us could hear, I have coveted you, miss, for a long time. Is the commander a libertine from a storybook? Hearing my words, he let out a light laugh. My dear, when you had that other matron travel 1,000 miles to the south to buy property for you, I already guessed what you were planning. I was just secretly giving you a little push. This way, I was fulfilling your wish and also fulfilling my own. I narrowed my eyes and looked at him coldly, my tone unfriendly. How? To fulfill your own? You may not know, my dear. The Emperor has already issued an edict, making that southern region my new jurisdiction. We are on the same road, and if all goes well, perhaps in the future, When we are in that region, we can even be neighbors. I was so angry at his words that I almost laughed. Arthur, you are so cunning. I couldn't help but frown, my heart full of suspicion of him. But he suddenly wiped all the smiles from his face and looked at me with a seriousness I had never seen before. He said, "Miss, in this life, one must always fight with all one's might to get what one desires. You are fighting to escape the cage of the capital that makes you unhappy, and I am fighting to pray to the heavens that you will look at me." I asked him, "Why, of all people, me?" He thought for a moment and then said, "Perhaps it was love at first sight." I sneered and retorted, "Once, someone in the capital, because of my looks, gave me the nickname, the Beauty. Could it be that the great commander of the Imperial Guard is also such a superficial person who only looks at appearances?" And he, just as he had said, became my neighbor. His estate was built right across from mine. For those 6 months, he was like a piece of gum I couldn't get rid of, sticking to me almost every day. He would take me to see the most beautiful sunrises, to eat the most delicious street food, and would silently stay by my side when I was sad. After once again righteously sending away the people my father had sent, I took the initiative to find him and proposed. "Arthur, why don't I just marry you?" He was completely stunned. He looked at me with a look of ecstatic disbelief. After a long time, he finally found his voice and said hoarsely, I thought I would never be able to fulfill my own wish." Later, when we got married, my father said in a letter to me that he had dreamed of my mother. He said that in his dream, my mother had smiled and nodded at him, as if agreeing to my marriage to him. Another winter, the snow in the south fell heavily, turning the world a pure white. I snuggled into his warm embrace, looking at the snowy scene outside, and suddenly asked, "Arthur, tell me honestly, when did you start to like me?" He bent down and gently kissed my forehead. "A long, long time ago. One year the Prime Minister, because of a case, brought several of us boys who were involved to his estate for questioning. I was passing by your back garden and happened to see you, all alone, sitting on a high swing. The swing wasn't moving, and there was not a single smile on your face. You were just sitting there, staring into the distance, your eyes so empty like a soulless doll. I don't know why, but from that one look, I knew that you were not happy at all in that vast estate. Later, I found excuses to go to your estate a few more times. Every time I saw you, you were like that. No matter what you were doing, there was never a real smile on your face. And then I found out that you were already engaged to their family. I was so sad for a long, long time, until my men accidentally discovered that you had sent that other matron to the south. I secretly had someone investigate, and then I roughly guessed your intentions. I took his words and finished his thought. So, you later set him up, and you set me up so that our marriage would be completely broken off." He held me and smiled. "Even if I hadn't set him up, with your intelligence, you would have found a way to break off that engagement yourself. My dear, it is good that you know clearly what you want, and are willing to work and fight for it." I reached out and gently touched his face, and also smiled. "Yes, you too."